It's not that difficult to tell a story with a great ending. The real challenge is to create a story that is irresistible from the very beginning. Beethoven was a great storyteller, not with words, but through music and with the most amazing chord progressions. Listen. One of the most common ways to create an exciting story is to have a hero and a villain, and the two fighting each other. In music, chords 1 and 6 are the heroes, where 1 is the main character and 6 its closest ally. Then you have the villains, chord 5 and 7, where 5 of course is the criminal mastermind. So all you have to do to tell a very exciting story with chords is putting these heroes and villains fighting each other. Of course, if that's all we do, something is missing. It's almost too easy. That's why writers and musicians, to increase the suspense, they add all these other characters and they delay the moment the villain appears. There is a risk, of course. If you delay that moment too much, the story might become boring. Think of one of those great books that you might have read once, and when you got to the end you thought, this was such a good book, and you felt rewarded. But the first 200 pages, you barely went through those. Maybe you didn't even finish the book, and you don't know what you missed out, just because the beginning and even the middle was not that exciting. So, how to solve this? I like to think of writing a story using the techniques of those super cool action movies from the 90s. I still remember the first time that my parents took me to the cinema to watch my first James Bond movie. My mind was blown and I couldn't take my eyes from the screen. From the moment the movie started, James Bond was fighting these bad guys and running away from the police, throwing himself out of a window with an improvised rope, and arriving a few centimeters from the floor and then walking away with his suit. I was so excited, I didn't walk out of the cinema. I jumped over the chairs and I was begging my parents, please give me a James Bond costume. And they asked, what the hell is a James Bond costume? You mean a suit? And I said, no, I want a James Bond costume. Of course I wanted a suit. But the point is, why did James Bond have such a big impact on me when I was a kid? Well, the secret is that the moment the movie started, action was already going on. In fact, there was immediate drama, and that drama led to the next part of the story. This is what secondary dominants do in music. They create a dramatic moment and they lead to the next scene. Beethoven was the master of drama and he really knew how to use dominants and secondary dominants. One of his most famous sonatas, the third movement of Pathétique, starts with this exciting fight between good and evil. He starts with chords 1, 5, 1, so the main hero versus the mastermind. And then the hero is in trouble, so he adds chord 6. Now chord 6 is fighting against chord 5. But then he also adds chord 7, and so you have this duet of heroes against this duet of criminals, of villains, and it is so exciting. And at some point you think, okay, this was the story, it's done. And that's when Beethoven throws a secondary dominant at your face. And it's almost like he's saying, I'm not done telling this story. And then he moves to chord 4, which makes the story move forward. And again, the fight between villains and heroes. And now you really think, okay, now the story really is over. But no. Beethoven throws once again at you a secondary dominant, and he tells the story again, exactly the same story, but this time even in a more exciting and accelerated way, like this. This is the secret behind music, creating drama, resolution, and leading to the next scene, and doing this over and over again until you get to the final battle between good and evil, and at the very end, chords 1, 5, 1. The hero defeats the villain. If you learn how to use dominants and secondary dominants, you can write great music. You can write the most sophisticated music. In fact, you have learned everything that you need to learn. You are done. There's nothing left to learn. Well, except that after you watch 10 James Bond movies, something happens. You already know how the next movie is going to be. Secondary dominants are so powerful that they are used very often, and so they may become predictable. This is why Beethoven not only uses dominants and secondary dominants, but also something else. Remember that chord progression I showed you at the beginning, or the music I just showed you? There were dominants and secondary dominants there, but there was something else. There was a secret ingredient, a chord that is perfect in every possible meaning of the word, a chord that has direction, drama, and more important, that is unexpected. It's unique. This might be very well the best chord ever created in the history of music. That chord is the